Hi guys and welcome back to My Dank Dog. Just as a quick reminder, I live in Canada. It's been legal here since 2018. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at my lovely mutated Dooligah OG F3 beans. She's looking great. Let's get into it. Big shout out to VivoSun for sponsoring the channel. And if you guys are looking to get a V-Grow, you can save 20% off at vivosun.com and Amazon stores with my promo code MDDVGROW. That's MDDVGROW. Also, guys, you can save 15% off at vivosun.com and Amazon stores with my promo code MyDankDog, and that's site-wide with no minimum purchase. If any of you follow me on Instagram or X, you'll have seen me upload some really cool images of freaky mutated leaves from my Terpes Dooligah OG F3 test seed run. So in this episode, we're just going to take a closer look at some of the genetics and lineage and heritage of those beans, as well as a bit of a deep dive into some terminology relative to breeding. It's a bit different to what I normally do, guys. It's kind of like a precursor to my Dooligah OG Grow, which will be coming soon in some episodes. So let's get into it. So what the F are Fs, if you've ever wondered what letters and numbers like F1, F2 or IBL mean, maybe you've seen terms like backcross or S1 and thought, what the hell is all that about? I'm going to try and break it down for you. Now, I'm not an expert, and if you are and you know more, please feel free to leave comments in the section below and educate all of us. But hopefully by the end of this video, I'll have kind of broke it down a little bit. Let's start by breaking down Dooligah OG F3 regular seeds. What does all that mean? Well, Dooligah in terms of Australia and its kind of cultural mythical creature is something similar to a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot. It's a big hairy bloke that roams the outback doing naughty things. That gives a little bit of a hint of some of the lineage and genetics that are part of this bean that I'm about to grow. The actual breakdown of the Dooligah OG is purple Urkel with OG Kush and Dooligah. The Dooligah part of that is actually double sour Zamal crossed with ABC Site 4, crossed with Subterfuge 1 and Peanut Butter Breath. Now, that's a lot to take in. So when I actually started to do a little bit of homework on that, I thought I'm going to, do a little bit of an investigation and bit of research as to kind of what these lineages are and what all of this means. So this is why I ended up putting this video together. The ABC Site 4 part of the breakdown of Dooligah was very interesting to me. I didn't know what that meant. ABC stands for Australian Bastard Cannabis, which is a pretty cool name off the bat. So I dug a little bit deeper into that, and Australian Bastard Cannabis basically does not look like cannabis at all. It has very herb-like leaves. It grows like a shrub or a bush. It does not resemble in any way like an indica or a sativa or a ruderalis. It doesn't have the serrated leaves. So it's very good for a stealth grow. It's not a strong plant. It's not potent. It's got about 5% THC. So basically anybody that consumed it said that it was a very kind of mild buzz, definitely in comparison to the strains that you get today, which are an average of about 20%, I would say. There's obviously much stronger ones than that. What it does have is these fantastic looking leaves that mean if you cross them, you can kind of get a stealth plant or a really kind of cool looking hybrid going on. Australian Bastard Cannabis has a bit of a murky heritage. It's likely that it descended from hemp or cannabis introduced to Australia in the 19th century. It's evolved to withstand poor growing conditions, bad soil, heat, lack of water. It's also very hardy when it comes to kind of pest resistance and stuff like that. So it's got a lot of benefits when you cross it with traditional cannabis just to make things a lot stronger. And also it's very kind of stealthy with its leaves. When I looked into it further, I did find out that when it's been crossed in the past, that the leaf is recessive. So if you keep crossing them and breeding them, that the mutated leaf look, or that very kind of non-cannabis serrated leaf look, the asymmetric kind of mutation, is recessive, and the more that you breed with it, the more that it disappears. But the thing that is left with plants apparently is its ability to withstand extreme temperatures and basically poor growing conditions. So there is a benefit to crossing it, other than it just looks really stealthy and kind of cool with its weird looking leaves. So if we start with the basics of cannabis breeding, it's about combining two plants to create an offspring with desirable traits like high THC or a great flavor or aroma, or maybe it's a resilience to mold or pests. When breeders start, they pick two parent plants, often called the P1 generation, so P1 and P2, mum and dad. When these parents are crossed, their seeds are called the first generation, F1 generation, filial generation. If the parents are genetically distinct and stable, like a pure landrace strain or an inbred line, F1 plants tend to be very uniform and vigorous, and this is because of a phenomenon called hybrid vigor. So what happens if you cross two F1s? Then you get a F2 generation. Makes sense. So you start with P1, P2, then you get an F1, and then if you cross the two F1s, then you're going to get an F2, or second filial generation. And this is where things start to get a little bit more interesting, because F2 plants are less uniform than F1s, because the genes of the original parents start to kind of like recombine in new ways. Some plants leaning towards one parent and the other plants leaning towards the other, and some showing a totally new combination. So you can expect somewhere like 25% of the plants in F2 generations to resemble one parent, 25% of the other to resemble the other parent, and 50% a mix of both. And this diversity is pretty cool for breeders hunting for unique phenotypes, but it also means that F2s are less predictable than F1s. And so obviously from here, the process continues. Crossing two F2 plants gives you F3 seeds. And by the time you reach maybe F4 or F5, the plants are much more uniform with fewer surprises in their genetics. But there's a catch that can kind of start to arise too, because too much inbreeding can lead to something called inbreeding depression, where plants lose vigor, yield less, or become more prone to diseases. When breeders get to F5 and beyond, and the plants are super stable, producing almost identical offspring every time, they've created what's called an IBL, or an inbred line. And IBLs are like the holy grail of the cannabis breeding industry. They produce plants with consistent traits generation after generation. Let's move on to backcrossing, or BX. This is a technique where a breeder takes an offspring like an F1 or an F2 and crosses it back with an original parent called a recurrent parent. And this is to lock in specific traits from that parent, like its potency or maybe its aroma, whilst reducing the influence of the other parent. For example, if you love the THC levels of your OG Kush parent, you might cross an F1 back to that OG Kush to make a BX1. And if you do it again and again, you get a BX2 and a BX3 and so on. Backcrossing can also help replicate a favorite clone as a seed. Say, for example, you have an amazing clone-only strain. By backcrossing it multiple times with a selected male, you can create seeds that closely mimic that clone's traits. S1s are created when a female plant is stressed, using techniques like chemical treatments to produce male pollen. That pollen is then used to pollinate the same plant or a clone of it, creating seeds that are essentially the plant breeding with itself. S1 seeds are highly uniform because they come from one parent's genetics, but they're not as stable as IBLs or inbred lines. So crossing two S1s from the same strain may give you something similar to an F3 in terms of stability, but it's not quite the same due to the selfing process. Another phrase you may have heard is polyhybrids, and this tends to be two different hybrids come together, which results in a combination of a bean that has varied genetics, different flavors, different aromas, different growth patterns, and obviously different effects. Quite a diverse combination. I obviously went down a bit of a rabbit hole on these beans and I found it really interesting and a great education for me. I have no intention of breeding anytime soon, but I am going to do it. I am into experimenting, and if you've watched my channel, I like to experiment with the way that I grow. So at some stage, I am definitely going to experiment with my own kind of cross breeding. I just don't know what that would be at the moment. It would have to be something that I've really found nice in one or two plants and I want to bring it together with another one or two plants. So I think I've got a long way to go yet, a lot more things to grow and a lot more things to discover, but at one stage I know that putting the homework in now and finding out what all of this means is going to pay off in the future. So stay tuned for that, but don't hold your breath because it's not going to be anytime soon. Again, guys, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Thanks for all the comments, all the likes, all the feedback and advice. If you find this channel interesting, please subscribe, show the support. I do appreciate it. Stay tuned for a bunch of new things that I've got coming. I'm going through my first mainlining experiment, so that's going to be an update coming soon with the Lucky 13s, as well as some clones on the go from the Lucky 13s too. So there's a bunch of different things that I've got on the grow, and I just need to get my ass into edit gear and put it into the best format for you guys. I know a lot of you have kind of expressed that you'd like to see longer videos and more detailed videos, so that's what I'm intending to do in the future. Stay tuned for that, and if you have any suggestions for the channel or anything that you'd like me to look into or go into more detail on, let me know in the comments section and I'll definitely put it to my list of things that people ask me. Again, guys, thanks a lot for watching, and big shout out to Vivo Sun for sponsoring the channel. Bye bye.